Okay, so Resident Evil is a game. It's a very famous game, very horror-based game. And I won't lie and say that, like, when I play it, I get scared every single time. I'm usually pretty interested, and I'm like, oh, wow, great! But there are a few times that really get me. And I want to at least highlight some of the things that I think are either scary or creepy, or at least worth mentioning. You know, jump scares, because we're going to count at least one. So for starters, this one always makes me nervous because it has the potential of a one-hit kill. And that's the Hunter. Hunter debuted Resident Evil 1. It's got the ability to go ahead, jump, and just cut your fucking head off. I believe it slits your throat. The original Resident Evil did this weird thing with Rebecca where it sliced off her face. But the idea is that threat is always there in a potential warning, so it doesn't matter if I have a fucking infinite rocket launcher. I'm always a little bit on edge because of the possibility that it can just do a straight lunge and take my head off and I'm dead. And it's kind of demotivating to die like that, which is why it's good. It's scary, it puts you on edge. Other than that, there's not too much to say about it.
I'm a human!
This one I find a little bit more creepy, but he's still got that little on-edge factor, and that's the comms officer from Resident Evil Revelations. It's creepy because as he's there and transformed and being a fucking killer and shit, you can hear him say things like, "What's going on? I'm human," and all sort of weird shit like that while he's in the process of being this little fish zombie fucking thing. He's also got this little weird buzzsaw, I guess, on his hand where he can go ahead, grab you, and just one-hit kill you. So the threat of danger is there, on top of the fact that he's, like, fucking aware of what's going on. It is kind of creepy and unsettling and very interesting, so I like it. Especially for a game that's so, I'm gonna call it new anyway. It's good to see that they can still throw in some sort of interesting and diverse, unique little twist that, like, it sets with you and it leaves an impression. So I'll be blunt, there's very few things in Resident Evil 4 that I find scary. A lot of people are going to say, chainsaw zombie, like, I don't give a shit. I can handle me a chainsaw zombie. I've taken on so many things in Resident Evil 4, it's desensitized me. But one of the few things that I will say can actually be intimidating, and if you said, hey, you found that scary, I can say, yeah, I can agree with you. And that's going to be Verdugo from the sewers in Resident Evil 4. The reason I'm going to agree with you is because, firstly, he's practically indestructible. Secondly, you're hanging around waiting on a lift while trying to dodge him, and your best weapon is to either try and kill him, which takes a lot of shots and a lot of ammo, but is very worthwhile, or you can use the liquid nitrogen and then freeze him and then try and run away. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting little strategy and like tension going on in the air. So that I can at least say, yeah, that's a little bit tense or frightening if you choose to view it as such. So this one's kind of cheating because, you know, it's typical, but the jump scares in Resident Evil. In particular, we're going to go with the things where things break through glass. So, for instance, in Resident Evil 1, where the dogs jump through the window, or in Resident Evil 2, where the licker jumps through the interrogation room, and so on and so forth. That's a typical trend that you see happening, but it always gets you at least once, and then when you know it's there, you don't care. I'm pretty sure I've screamed once by a licker jumping through the thing because I forgot it was there. But yeah, it's good. It's a little typical trope, so it's not worth talking about too much. It's a jump scare. But it still is going to get at least somebody each time. Okay, so this is more creepy than anything, mostly for backstory purposes, but I still think it's at least worth talking about. And that's going to be Lisa Trevor from Resident Evil 1. So, for starters, she's indestructible to any sort of weapons, which automatically that's a thing for you. Then she's making all sorts of like really creepy noises and moaning and stuff. And then there's the idea that she's the boss fight, and most of it's going to be the backstory stuff. So the whole, hey, my mom, hey, I took my mom's face, hey, I look like a freak, hey, I have squid tentacles, hey, I'm chained up, hey, I'm indestructible. Like, there's a lot of things in there that definitely put that on, like, the iconic and creepy and unsettling side of Resident Evil, and I think they did a damn good job at it. So remember how I said almost nothing scares me in Resident Evil 4? Well, this is the only thing in the entire game that does, and that's the Wolverines. So for starters, they're blind. So it's very, very interesting to fight them. But because they're blind, they're busy slashing around and all that. And then if you get them in your direction, they will run towards you, slice you, pick you up, and then just one-hit kill you. So as a result, they are going to be, in my opinion, probably the most intimidating enemy in the entire game. Once you've played it enough times, they become a lot easier to handle, but the first time you deal with it, it's fucking insane. And then it becomes even harder when there's a room where there's two of them, and then there's a bunch of other regular enemies on top of that. So yeah, those are the only things in the entire game that actually bother me or scare me or creep me out. So there you go. Those guys are hard, they're dangerous, they're fucking insane. That's the only thing you're allowed to call scary. If you say anything else other than that in Verdugo, I'm going to disagree with you and call you a bitch. Now this one's mostly just for like first time feelings, and you could also count it as a jump scare, but what I always thought about when I was like, hey, like what's the scariest things? They're gonna be Crimson Heads. So for starters, it's more of the fear of the idea of them existing than it is them actually existing. Because you have that little timer that says, hey, if you don't dispose of this body quick enough, they're gonna come back to life and then fucking chase you with bloodlust, and then, you know, they're gonna be faster, gonna be more powerful, all that sorts of stuff. And then you're walking over their body, they stand up, and they come and get you. So yeah, it's kind of a jump scare, but it's more the fear of them existing than anything in the world. Because at any minute they can turn, and you never know when it's going to happen. You never expect it to come. And it was always kind of fun to play the game and then watch my sister gasp anytime they would stand up and try and get me. So there you go. They're scary, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I've ranted on Mr.X a few times, but of all the things in Resident Evil 2, I feel like he's quite possibly the scariest, and that's going to be because of the fact of the whole stalking scene where you're running away from him, and then he busts down a wall, and then you try and escape from him, and then he busts down another wall, and then you're like, okay, I'm finally free, and then he climbs up from out of fucking nowhere, and the dude is, I'm pretty sure, indestructible as well. I think you can maybe knock him down and then pick up some magnum ammo at the most. But other than that, he's following you, he's got a fucking trench coat, he'll punch you in the face, he doesn't give a shit. So yes, he's always been the thing that's gotten me because, like, you don't anticipate any of the antics, he's always a threat that's there, and then there's the idea that he's gonna get you. Star. Now, I'm putting this one so high on the list because the title alone was enough to actually make me so scared that I didn't even want to buy the game. But eventually I grew a pair of testicles and bought the game. Nemisis. So he's kind of like Mr.X in the idea that he stalks you, except he's indestructible and carries a fucking rocket launcher. So yes, that was enough to intimidate me. I like what they did with him in the whole film. I thought it was good, and you know, that's what gave me so much of a presence of understanding what he was. But when it's enough to make you reluctant to buy a game, I think that's a good sign that it's kind of intimidating. Now I understand a lot better how he works, so I'm not scared of him nearly as much, but having those bits where he comes out and gets you definitely gets the adrenaline pumping.
It's Forrest.
And then for number one, it's going to be Forrest from Resident Evil 1 Remake. So for those of you who don't know, Forrest was actually a guy on Stars who ended up being killed. You find him, you take his grenade launcher, and there you go. But the thing is, after you beat the game, and I believe you gotta beat it in under a set time limit, he becomes a thing that will chase you around the first quarter of the game. Now that doesn't sound so bad, except for the fact that he's strapped with fucking grenades. Meaning, you have to run from him because he's like a Crimson Head, he's really fast and technically indestructible, because if you shoot him, you blow up and die. You can't kill him. You can't avoid him. He will show up when you least expect it, and he will fucking get you. That is the most scary thing in Resident Evil. I can still play it now and get uncomfortable just knowing where he is. Just seeing him in the shadows, I'm like, holy shit, I didn't expect you to be there. I mean, obviously I'm good at the game, so it's fine, but there you go. Like, nothing to me. It's one thing to have an indestructible guy following you, and then it's another thing to have an indestructible guy that if you fight back, you killed yourself because you fought back. And sometimes you get a little trigger finger happy and you accidentally defend yourself and then blow yourself the fuck up. So again, that's my list. I think I did at least an okay job because I tried my best to explain fear, which, you know, if I can do that, I think I'm doing a good job. So those were the things that I thought were at least worth scary, creepy, or unsettling, or whatever in Resident Evil, the top 10 spooks. So there you go. You can go ahead and tell me what you think anyway, what scared you. I'll only judge you a lot. That's a joke. So yeah, see you guys later, JC4R.